Happy opening day, everybody. And boy, am I excited. It has finally arrived. I've got 2 episodes for you today, okay? And I know I waited to the very last minute, although, as most of you know, I was in Tokyo for the last 2 weeks for the Tokyo Series. And so I'm going to talk about that a little bit. And then I'm going to, in this episode, I'm going to do my official power rankings, going into the start of the season. We've seen all the injury bugs happen. We've seen we know the lineups. We know the, opening day starters. And so I'm just going to go through and rank, where I think the teams are going into the start of the season. And obviously that's going to change over the course of the season. I'll probably do one at the end of every month, but we'll see. We'll see how that turns out. It might not change very much from month to month. And then in the second episode that's coming out, it's going to be my official, awards and World Series predictions. So I'm very excited for that one. I've put a good amount of thought into it, especially the awards, because I've got obviously some dark horses that I think a lot of people are sleeping on. But we know who the obvious choices are for most of those. But so that's episode 2. Right now, I just want to talk a little bit about the Tokyo Series because I've seen some mixed bags. And also I'm wearing I don't know if you can see that, I'm wearing my Tokyo Series shirt. And it was just so much fun over there, man. People don't realize how big of a sport baseball is in Japan, man. I mean, they love it there. And while, some of the traditions are a little bit different, obviously, if you got up for the Tokyo Series, which I think it was 6 a.m. over here, yes, because it was 7 p.m. over there. So 6 a.m. over here, and if you got up for it, you definitely got to watch some good games. Okay, unfortunately, the Dodgers won both, so the Cubs are already in an 0-2 hole. Although I don't really think that series matters too much. Not in a sense, it's the first 2 games of the season. Obviously, the series itself was excellent, but Cubs will be fine. The Dodgers will probably continue to be the Dodgers. But yeah, just the way they do baseball over there, man. I love it. The energy, and it's obviously you had, Dodgers fans, you had Cubs fans, but really you had jerseys and hats. I saw Padres gear. I saw Yankees gear, which obviously is what I was wearing when I was over there. But, I even saw a couple Pirates gear. I saw a couple Pirates hats out there. And they love baseball, man. And I get why people are upset that the first 2 games of the season are over there. And then you come back and you play exhibition games still, But, look, Japan deserves every couple years to have, that opening day happen over there, man. It's, like I said, they love baseball. A lot of the stars, nowadays, are not born in America, whether they're Dominican, whether they're Japanese, so it's a global game, okay? And I love seeing a lot of foreign players get highlighted, especially in their home country. To watch Yamamoto pitch, to watch Ohtani homer. He homered in game 2. To watch that, man, it's a beautiful thing. And like I said, you see a lot of gear over there. And obviously, like I saw Cubs fans cheering when, Sasaki did something or Yamamoto did something, especially when Ohtani homer. That place erupted, obviously. But yeah, so I'm glad that, the start of the season was over there. I'm glad that Japan got to enjoy that. The players obviously loved taking that trip there, and I look forward to seeing more stuff like that. And I'm glad, I don't think there will ever be an MLB team that's, overseas or anything like that, which might happen in the NFL. They're talking about taking a team to London. I don't think that'll ever happen in Major League Baseball, but I like them playing games over there occasionally. I really do. It was weird that the Cubs were considered the home team, though. I'm not sure if I agree with that fully, but, still, I enjoyed it. It was great. Like I said, the Dodgers took both games. I was a little mad at Craig Counsell, the manager of the Cubs, for taking Imanaga out after 4 innings. He was pitching a great game. Sure, he got in trouble a couple times, but that's what he does. He's a contact pitcher. He doesn't strike out a lot of guys. So guys were getting on base, but then he just get right out of it. And he only got to pitch 4 innings in his home country. He was nervous. All them guys were nervous. I saw it in Yamamoto. Definitely saw it in Sasaki. Even Ohtani admitted to being nervous. That's normal. But let the guys pitch, man. I mean, opening day in his home country, he's pitching a good game. So very disappointed in Craig Counsell for that. It didn't seem like Imanaga was hurt or anything like that. So definitely was disappointed. But I was impressed with Sasaki, man. Because I could tell he was very nervous. And he did get into some trouble, but my gosh, can that kid pitch, dude. I mean, there was some pitches he threw where I was just like, he's only going to get better. I mean, he's 22 years old? Maybe not that young, but, he's younger. So, yeah, man, I mean, he's going to be fun to watch. Yamamoto, obviously, is the real deal. We've seen that. Ohtani might not pitch this year. I know they're saying May or June, but I don't think when you have a rotation like that, you need to force Ohtani back. But we'll see. But he hit a home run. That was wonderful to see. Justin still got rocked in Game 2. I was a little surprised by that. But, nerves. He's obviously going to be nervous. So, like I said, an 0-2 start doesn't matter, man. I mean, the Cubs can easily sweep the next 3, and they're perfectly fine. But overall, I really hope you guys got to watch that series because it was a thing of beauty. I enjoyed every minute of it, and I don't really think people have the right to be that upset over it. But that's just my opinion. Next up, we're going to go ahead, and I'm going to not blow through this, but I'm obviously not going to try to spend too much time on it because we have 30 teams, okay? And I'm just going to start with the power rankings. I guess I'll once we get up more towards the top, I'll kind of explain what I like, what I don't like about the teams, But I feel like this power ranking's pretty solid. The middle gets a little jumbled up, okay? Because the thing that I'm excited about this year in particular is the AL. Just because there's so many teams that are just like right there in the middle, dude. And there's the NL East is a great example of a division where it's like you flip a coin pretty much, at least in my opinion, which you'll see in my power rankings. But as far as the whole AL goes, I mean, they're like right there together, dude. It's all bunched up. So definitely pretty excited to see how all that plays out. But to get started, I'll blow through the bottom 5. The White Sox are 30th. I mean, guys, they've got young kids. I don't think Luis Robert is going to be there at the end of the year. I'm surprised Andrew Vaughn's still there, a first baseman with some good hitting stats. So, but, I mean, them guys are probably going to be gone. They got rid of Garrett Crochet. So, yeah, I mean, I don't really think I need to say that much, to be honest with you. So, number 30 is the White Sox. Now, number 29 is the Rockies, who are probably just barely better than the White Sox, honestly. I know that sounds crazy to say. I like some of their young hitters, okay, although they did just trade Nolan Jones away, which I honestly think he can easily bounce back, so I'm not sure why they did that. But the pitching there always gets hammered. It's not a good park for pitchers, man. And they get absolutely hammered, dude. And so I don't see the Rockies doing much. So, number 30, White Sox. Number 29, Rockies. Number 28 is the Marlins, okay? And I like their pitching staff. Okay, they're obviously, getting a Cy Young pitcher back from injury. And their pitching is usually consistently at least good. They did get rid of Jesus Luzardo, but they know how to draft good pitching. They know how to bring good pitching up. But look at that lineup. I mean, guys, it's not going to be pretty. I would be very surprised if they don't finish bottom three, and especially hitting, okay? Like, it's maybe last in homers. I mean, just because if the White Sox, if Vaughn and Robert start off hot, then they're at least going to get a couple homers from them guys. I don't know who's going to hit a home run for the Marlins. So I think the bottom three were pretty much the easiest. I'm sorry to all those fans out there. You guys it's going to be a rough 2025. But for 27, I had to go with the St. Louis Cardinals. Again, they've got names on their team. Okay, they've got Sonny Gray, they've got Nolan Arenado, they've got Jordan Walker, who has potential. They have Mason Wynn at shortstop, who I love. Underrated player, okay? He's great. But I don't really think that they're playing for anything. Like, yeah, they can be good, but I honestly think they're going into the season with the lowest expectations that they've had in a decade, maybe more. You know what I mean? And it's unfortunate because that fan base is used to them consistently staying at the top of that division. But I think a lot of them guys are probably going to be gone at the All-Star break. And Jordan Walker's fallen off a cliff. I really hope he bounces back, but he's not who they thought he was going to be, at least not yet. I'd be surprised if Arenado's still there after the All-Star break. Sonny Gray loves pitching there, but he could also be gone. And their pitching it hasn't really been consistent. And so, unfortunately, I have to put the Cardinals down that far. Also, just because, I think the Cubs, Reds, and Brewers are all going to be fighting for that top spot, and I think they're all three going to beat up on the Cardinals a little bit, and that's going to hurt the Cardinals. Next up, at 26, we have the Pittsburgh Pirates. Again, in that division, they're probably going to get beat up on by the rest of the division. And obviously, look, so Jared Jones is hurt. That hurts them, okay, which is one of the reasons why I didn't put them a little bit higher. Because obviously you got Paul Skeens. He's going to be the reason you win, 15 games this season. I don't know if if the number 15 is going to be next to his name necessarily, but 15 wins are going to be that's the floor for Paul Skeens, okay? That's what he's going to give them is 15 wins, okay? Then you look at the rest of the rotation. If Jared Jones comes back, he's going to be solid. And then you have Mitch Keller, who is, that's a great top three. Obviously, Jared Jones is going to be out for a little bit. But once he comes back, in May, June, they're going to have one of the best top threes in baseball. I honestly believe that, okay, with the pitching staff. I really do. I think those three are really solid. But again, with the lineup, O'Neal Cruz is getting moved to center field, okay, and we know he can hit. We know Brian Reynolds can hit. But it's like, other than that, you got some question marks, man. And I was really disappointed to see them not go out and make that roster better in the offseason. Add a DH bat, add a power bat to that lineup. It's really disappointing to see the Pirates not go out and do that. But they still do have one of the best top threes in baseball, even if Jared Jones is hurt to start the season. And so I couldn't put them any lower, and I couldn't put them any higher. So 26, I think, for the Pirates is pretty solid. Next up is where I really started to struggle, okay? Because there's a bunch of teams jumbled up in the middle, and then there's a good amount of teams that are just like, they fall just short. And you really, once you start picking where they go, you realize that teams you didn't want to put so low end up falling so low. It's a weird season, I think, in Major League Baseball. But at 25, I have the Angels, and you're like, yeah, the Angels should definitely be that low. But if you look at, their roster, First off, you say Kikuchi to be the ace of their staff was a good pickup. I like that. Then you're looking at if Mike Trout stays healthy, okay, you've got Zach Neto, who I think is hurt to start the year, but, Logan O'Hoppe, who's only going to get better. He's still 24 years old or something like that. He's a really solid catcher. Luis Rengifo at second, who's a 300 hitter when he's healthy. Okay? I mean, when you look across that roster, they've got young pitchers that I think are going to take a step forward. Reed Detmers. They've got Jose Soriano. They've got Tyler Anderson, who pitched, 180 innings last year to a 3.8 ERA. I mean, you're happy with that if you're an Angels fan. You've got Kenley Jansen to close games out. Look, this might be a little too low for the Angels. And I know how crazy that sounds. I mean, they're not going to win the division. They're not going to make the playoffs. But I feel like you could probably find a couple more teams that are going to finish lower than them in the rankings. But for right now, that's just how it played out, and I still support it. I think the Angels at 25 is pretty solid. Now, next up at 24, you've got the Nationals. And again, this is one of the teams that could have easily finished below the Angels. I just really believe in Dylan Cruz in that outfield. I think their outfield is really solid. Stone Garrett, Dylan Cruz, James Wood, and, of course, at shortstop, you've got a young rising star and C.J. Abrams. I think Nathaniel Lowe at first base was a great pickup for them. My only thing is with the bullpen and the rotation. Okay, there are still some question marks, and so I couldn't put them any higher, but I think they have a lower floor than maybe I want to admit. Like I said, the Angels could easily finish above them. But I just really, really believe in Dylan Cruz, man. And I think if he comes out and he plays like Bryce Harper did when he was younger, like Juan Soto did when he first came up, then I think they could easily jump a couple more spots. But we don't know that yet. And so I can't put them any higher on the list. Next up at 23, we have the Toronto Blue Jays. And this one, again, people are probably going to rip on me because when you look at their roster, it's pretty solid. They have an underrated rotation. They obviously have Vlad Guerrero. They just went out and got Santander. They've got Bo Bichette. But they've had a solid roster for the last decade, you guys, and it just hasn't amounted to much. Okay, I mean, Vlad's going to play his heart out. He's playing for money. Okay, Vlad's going to be Vlad. But we don't know if Bo Bichette's going to bounce back. Santander, while he is a good power hitter, he's not much of a contact hitter. Okay, we don't really know how he's going to fit in that lineup yet, although I do think it's going to be good. I'm just saying we don't know yet. And the rotation does have injury concerns. So I can't believe in the Blue Jays until they prove me wrong. Because there's been a lot of years where I've been like, no, like the Blue Jays are going to threaten, the Yankees, the Red Sox for that AL East division. And then they typically, them and the Rays keep finishing towards the bottom of it. And it's just like, I can't believe in them. I think if they don't get off to a hot start, half that team's going to be gone at the deadline. And so I have to keep them. Okay, so now I'm going to speed run through the next four because honestly, these four were maybe the most difficult for me to. I mean, I kind of just flipped a coin in my head, I'll be honest with you. So we're going to go 22 to 19 like that. So 22, we have the A's. All right, I love a couple names. Okay, obviously Brent Rooker, Lawrence Butler, happy with it. Okay, the rotation, they went out and got Severino, Jeffrey Springs. I think that they're going to surprise a couple people this year. 21, I put the Rays. Okay, again, the Rays are one of them teams where you look at the roster, they don't have big names. They don't have Aaron Judge. They don't have a Ohtani, a Juan Soto. But they just play their hearts out, and they win games when they're close, and they've consistently, kind of went down and up the last decade. And last year was a down year, so I think this year could be an up year. Now with 20, we have the Detroit Tigers. Again, the rotation, okay, the rotation's solid. Flaherty, I love Flaherty going back. Tarek Skubal could very much win Cy Young again. Okay, then they have Reese Olson, and they've got some hitters. Parker Meadows, they have Kerry Carpenter, they have Riley Green. They went out and got Gleyber Torres. And so, I mean, you're looking at the team and it looks good. But again, with just how talented a lot of the other teams are, they don't have that one, superstar hitter in their lineup, which as you get towards the top, you're going to kind of realize a lot of them teams do. They have, that MVP front runner. Plus, they're in a very interesting division. The AL Central, all them teams are going to be right there. And I think if I'm looking at the rosters and what I know players can be, I think the Tigers just, fall a little bit short of the other three teams that, we'll get to in a minute. Next up, at 19, we have the Mariners. And look, the Mariners' rotation is absolutely unbelievable. Okay, I mean, they're just George Kirby, who is hurt. Okay, Logan Gilbert, Brian Wu, Luis Castillo. I mean, them guys are, they could be, an ace or a number 2 on pretty much 90% of Major League Baseball teams, especially all the teams that I just listed below them. Okay, but that also has a park factor because you look at their numbers at home and on the road, they are very different. Okay, especially George Kirby's numbers. Plus, that lineup, just doesn't hit. Julio Rodriguez has slowly declined the last couple years, which he's still young. He could easily come out, get, top 5 MVP finish this season, like he did, I think, his rookie year, or, something around there. I know he had a top finish at one year, but it just, I look around the AL, and there's just a lot of other teams I believe in more than the Mariners. And so, while I love their rotation, it was disappointing to see them not go out and get, a bat like the Pirates. Like, when you have pitching like that, you go out and just get a solid bat to, just strengthen the middle of your lineup. Because that extra run or two per game, that's going to make a difference. And they didn't do it, and so I can't put them any higher. All right, now I'm going to go from 18 to 15, okay? Fire off 4 more. So 18 was a little hard, and I do think this could be a little low for them. My buddy Alex probably isn't going to like this, although we've talked a little bit. He's a little disappointed in, kind of what they've done this offseason, but I have to put the Guardians at 18th. And not really because that's where I think they're going to finish, because I do think a lot of them guys have potential. I'd love to see Big Christmas go off. I've talked to Alex about that. I'd love to see him, just add some power there, man, to that lineup. You have David Fry, who I think is a really solid DH option. You've got Kyle Manzardo, wherever they put him, because they brought back, after they traded Josh Naylor away, which I did not like that move at all. But they did bring back Carlos Santana, who's a plus fielder and who's still hitting at a pretty solid level, even though he's 38, 39 years old. So there's some names I like. Obviously, Tanner Bybee at the top of that rotation. I love Bybee. Bybee's a great dude. That bullpen is going to be top 5 in baseball. They've obviously got Steven Kwan, Jose Ramirez, who's the most underrated player in baseball. And so, look, it's not that I don't like their roster. I do. It's just whether or not those guys really become what I think they can become. Because if Big Christmas isn't a 30-plus homer guy, he's a, 20-homer guy, that's a blow, you know what I mean? If Carlos Santana starts to fall down because of his age, that's a blow. And so, plus the rotation needs to stay healthy. And so, they're easily one of them teams. Like I said, the middle was extremely tough. They could easily go up. I don't see them going below that. I'll say that right now. They could go up. I think their floor is in this 18 spot. Next up at 17, again, a team that I think their floor is 17 but could easily go up, the Cincinnati Reds. Look, I love this roster. I absolutely love it. Okay? They went out, they got Brady Singer. Okay, they had an influx of infielders. They got rid of India, got Singer. They've got Matt McClain back, Ellie De La Cruz. But you look at their outfield, and it worries me. You know, it's one of the weaker outfields in baseball. They always have injuries every year. And so I just need to see them do it. If they come out the first 2 months and they're 6 to 7 games above 500, then they'll probably get moved up. But I just have to see them do it. And so I can't put them above, 17 right now. But I do think that's their floor. Next up at 16, the Houston Astros. And again, a lot of question marks. Okay, Christian Walker's already hurt to start the year. The rotation normally gets hurt. I kind of wanted to put them lower. They do have some questions. That outfield's looking pretty rough. Although, of course, they're moving Altuve to left field, and I know that's just going to work for some reason, although it probably shouldn't. But you look at their infield, Pena, he needs to take a step forward. At third base, you obviously have Paredes, and I don't think he's quite hit the level that you want in a starting third baseman, although he does have some pop potential, especially in that park because he pulls everything. If you look at his page, he literally just pulls everything. And that porch in left field, there's going to be some extra balls that carry out there. But I put them this high simply because they're the Astros. They've got Yordan Alvarez. And Jose Altuve is going to get hits. Christian Walker, when he comes back, we know what he can do in the lineup. And Yainer Diaz behind home plate. So, yeah, I couldn't put him any lower as much as I wanted to because I'm tired of the whole Astros dynasty, which I do think is over. Okay, I don't think they're going to be a true World Series threat. But they're going to compete in that division. I think that's just, what people need to expect. And so the Astros, I think, at 16 is where they belong. And then 15, I went Kansas City. Okay, I put the Royals here. Again, that rotation, absolutely electric. Okay, they've got Cole Reagans at the top, who's going to probably be top 3 Cy Young finish this year. Okay, just because the AL's, it's getting kind of weak, But he's really solid. They have Salvador Perez. We know what he can do every year. They have Vinny Pasquantino, who I think is hurt starting the year. But, again, those 3 were basically all had over 100 RBIs last year. Pasquantino missed some time, so he didn't quite get there, but he was above 90. And so that lineup, while it's very top-heavy, do not look at the bottom half of that lineup. But now they've got India, who's going to be a great leadoff hitter, I think, for them. And so I just think the Royals are going to be right there at the top of that Central Division. I think that when you look at their roster, maybe they don't have the most complete roster, but I do think that they're top-heavy. Their ace and their number 1 player are above most of the other teams. And so I was pretty happy with having them at 15. So at 14, I have the Brewers. Okay, and I think the Brewers, if everybody stays healthy, while their rotation they don't have a stud, they don't have a star, but they consistently just bring up good pitching, man. I think Cortez was a solid addition to that rotation. We know their bullpen's going to be good, even though they got rid of Devin Williams. That's not going to affect them whatsoever. They've got, if Yelich stays healthy, they've got Jackson Chourio. Okay, they got Bryce Terang. They've got Wilson Contreras. Their lineup's going to be solid. And in that division where I think the Cardinals and Pirates are probably going to get beat up on a little bit, I think Milwaukee has always been great in that division, even when teams are better than them. And so I just think it's unrealistic to not expect them to be at least somewhere in the middle or upper middle across the league. And so I'm pretty happy with having the Brewers at 14. 13, I went with the Minnesota Twins, which you'll notice is the highest I have an AL Central team. Okay, and yes, I do think that is realistic when you look at their roster. That's not accounting for injuries because my gosh, that team can't stay healthy, dude. I mean, look at their team last year, dude. Every single player had plus stats. But then you go to games and they played less than half the season, or they played half the season. And it's just like, Royce Lewis is already hurt to start the season. Byron Buxton probably won't be far behind him. Carlos Correa will get dinged up at some point. And I hate saying that. I never want to wish an injury on anybody. But I couldn't put them higher, even though I think their roster is very underrated. You know, Pablo Lopez, Joe Ryan, Bailey Ober. Look at their stats, you guys. That's a solid starting three, okay, in that rotation. It really is. And then you look at their lineup, and them guys should be, if they all play at the same time, they're going to win games. I mean, they could easily get a huge lead in that division right off the bat if them guys play the first 2 months without getting hurt. But how realistic is that? I'm not sure. And I hate saying that, but just look at their injury history. It's not good, especially for a team with a roster like that. It's disappointing. So I couldn't put them any higher, but I couldn't put them any lower because if they do stay healthy, then they're probably going to be higher than 13. Next up at number 12, a team that I do enjoy rooting for, the San Francisco Giants. But obviously they're in the toughest division in baseball, if you ask me, or at least one of. Maybe the NL East is a little bit tougher, but the NL West is up there. And so I couldn't put them higher, but I do like this roster, okay? Logan Webb is just, he's the most consistent pitcher in baseball, where he pitches 200 innings every year, and he does it at an above average, maybe not elite level, but a solid, above average pitcher. And you look at Matt Chapman, he really came out last year, okay? He really surprised a lot of people. He earned that extension. Then you look, Tyler Fitzgerald now at second base. He's got some pop. You look at shortstop, obviously, them bringing in Willie Adames is going to make a huge difference. You look in the outfield, Jung-Ho Lee, Elliot Ramos. So again, these guys, they all have really solid potential. But it's just, I can't put them any higher because of the division they play in. I mean, I just can't. It's unfortunate, and I'd love to see them make the playoffs, but it's going to be tough, man. But still, I do like the Giants. I think they're going to be a fun team to watch. I think a lot of people are sleeping on them. The rotation does worry me when you get past, the first two. I don't think Verlander is really going to contribute much. He's just too old at this point, to be honest with you. But I think the Giants will still be solid. So I have them at 12. All right, then the next four, 11 to 8. So with 11, I've got the Chicago Cubs, who I do think should be the favorites going into the season in the NL Central. Okay, I just think what they've added this offseason, they completely revamped their bullpen. Their bullpen looks much better. They obviously went out and got Kyle Tucker. They did get rid of Cody Bellinger, I get that. But, I think Matt Shaw is going to be solid at third base. I think people are sleeping on him. And we know what the rotation is, Imanaga, Justin Steele. And so I think when you look on paper, they should be the favorites in the NL Central, but they're not a powerhouse. They're not a juggernaut. And so I couldn't justify putting them much higher on the list. I unfortunately wouldn't be too surprised if they fall a little bit, by the end of the year. If the Brewers lap them, I wouldn't be too surprised. Even if the Reds, at least come close to the Cubs, I wouldn't be surprised. But I think for right now, 11th going into the season, I'm pretty happy with that. Next up at number 10, the Baltimore Orioles. And to be honest with you, I think this might be a little high. And the only reason I say that is because their injuries are... So, Gunnar Henderson he's going to be hurt to start the season. Okay, Grayson Rodriguez he's hurt again. Who knows how long it's going to be before he comes back. And they lost Santander. Yes, they got Tyler O'Neill, but he's got injury problems. And so you just look at this team, and there's so much potential. Jackson Holliday, is he going to be who he's supposed to be? You know, Rutschman, he's a platoon player. You look at his stats, he's got to learn how to hit right-handed pitching. Okay, if he's gonna be a full-time starter and he's gonna be the guy like they think he's gonna be, he hits 219 against righties. I mean, he just can't do that. I like Felix Bautista being back, you know, as their closer. I think that's gonna help him. But that rotation is just, if you go and look at it right now, it's not okay, man. And I just think in that division, the Red Sox got better. Sure, the Yankees dropped down a little bit, but I just think it's gonna be too much of a race at the top, and I think the Orioles are going to fall short. And I honestly, I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs this year. But that's not what we're discussing right now. I kept the Orioles at 10. I didn't want to put them any lower, although I probably should have. But for right now, I'm okay with that. Now, next up at 9, the San Diego Padres. The rotation, in my opinion, once Yu Darvish comes back, is still solid, okay? They didn't get rid of Michael King. They didn't get rid of Dylan Cease. Them guys are still going to pitch. We know what we can get out of them. Okay, you've got Fernando Tatis, who I think is only going to get better. You've got Manny Machado, who has always been one of my favorite players in the league. He's just consistently a great third baseman. He might not be an MVP winner, you know, but consistently he's just a great third baseman. They obviously have Jackson Merrill in center field. They've got Luis Arias, who's a 300 hitter every season. And so while the bottom of their lineup is a little scary, I just think the rotation, the bullpen, and the top half of their lineup is just too solid to put them any lower, man. And while they're in that tough division, I think they're going to compete all year. And so I'm happy with keeping the Padres at 9. Now, number 8, this might surprise some people, but who I have winning the AL West, the Texas Rangers. When everybody's healthy, the Rangers are going to be right there, okay? People forget that last year they had a lot of injuries, okay? And so they won the World Series. Last year they fell off, didn't make the playoffs, and people wrote them off. But, you know, injuries happen, okay? Corey Seager's still on that team. Marcus Semien, if he can bounce back and, you know, have a plus season. And right field, Adolis Garcia had a horrible season, you know, to his standards. I don't think that's going to repeat. Sure, Evan Carter didn't make the team, you know, going into the season. They just announced that he's going to start in minor leagues. But you still got Wyatt Langford. Okay, not to mention, you know, Jonah Heim. I like the addition of Jake Berger. I love the addition of Jock Peterson. That guy is so slept on, man. I mean, he is a perfect platoon DH, okay? He is going to absolutely crush righties, dude. And while the rotation is a little scary, I do like Evaldi. I like Leiter. I like Kumar Rocker. The main thing is whether DeGrom can stay healthy, which we know that's not likely, unfortunately. But if he does, then my gosh, dude. I think the Rangers are going to run away with that division. I don't think it's going to be close. But we'll wait and see. I'm pretty happy with where they're at. I really am. I think the Rangers are kind of getting slept on a little bit going into the start of the season. All right, with the next 2, we're going to finish off the AL because the top 5 best teams in Major League Baseball, I think, are all in the NL. So let's go ahead and get the AL finished off. And yes, they're both in the AL East. Look, number 7... You think I'm going to go Boston Red Sox, but I'm actually going to go New York Yankees. I think the Red Sox have jumped them. I like the Yankees overall. I think they got better defensively. I think their pitching got better, although, of course, Garrett Cole is out for the season with Tommy John surgery. Luis Hill's probably going to be out till the All-Star break. Clark Schmidt is hurt to start the season, although I don't think his injury is a big deal, but I think overall, consistently, the lineup got deeper, although there obviously isn't a Juan Soto in there. I think Cody Bellinger's going to have his best years, you know, in 5 years since he won MVP. I think that Aaron Judge is going to continue to be Aaron Judge. We're going to miss Stanton in the middle of that lineup, but I think that Jazz Chisholm's going to take a step forward. I think Austin Wells is going to consistently stay good. He's going to hit like a catcher. He's not going to be a 350, you know, OBP guy who hits 50 home runs, but I think he's going to be a plus hitter for a catcher. I think Paul Goldschmidt's going to hit at least 250, which I'm happy with. 20 home runs, I'm okay with that. My only worry is now when you look at the rotation, because I think the bullpen's going to be top 5 in baseball, especially bringing in Devin Williams. I think that Weaver-Williams punch in the 8th and 9th inning is going to be nasty. But when you look at the rotation right now, as it stands, okay, you've got Carlos Rodon, Max Fried, Carlos Carrasco, Marcus Stroman, and Will Warren. And while I'm okay with that, okay, Will Warren's had a great spring. Carrasco, we know he can pitch, although he's getting up there in age. We know who Max Fried is. Rodon is up and down, okay? We've seen flashes of brilliance, and then I've seen this dude pitch and been like, brother, what are you doing? Marcus Stroman with the plus defense behind him can be solid, so I'm okay with it. But I cannot put them any higher, okay? I just can't do it. There's so many question marks with this team. I think they can either be great or they can be below average. I don't see them being much worse than below average, okay? Or average, I guess, really, because that would mean they'd be in middle of the pack. But I have to keep them 7th because they're the New York Yankees, man. I mean, they've consistently at least, won close to 90 games every year since I was born. So, I mean, I've got to keep them there, man. And to finish out the AL in the 6th spot, we've got the Boston Red Sox. The additions of Bregman, I love it. Garrett Crochet, Walker Buehler, they're going to be amazing. I wouldn't be surprised if they win the division easily. I hate saying that. But it just, Devers is going to DH. Bregman's going to 3rd. That's already been announced. You've got Casas at 1st, who I think is going to, really come out of a shell. You've got Jarren Duran. Guys, look at the roster, for real. Look at the Boston Red Sox roster. It's loaded. It's a thing of beauty, and it's gonna hurt to watch them play the Yankees all season because I really don't. While the Yankees can beat other teams, they've always struggled in division, and I think that's gonna be very clear this year. I think there's gonna be a lot of teams in that division that I think the Rays are gonna beat them a lot. I think the Orioles, the Red Sox, and so it just the Red Sox deserve to be 6th. They do. And I wanted to put them higher, but when you look at the NL, it's hard to do that. So the Red Sox at 6, I'm happy with that. Now at number 5, to start the rapid fire NL teams, we have the New York Mets. And it hurts my soul to put them this high, okay? And I used to like the Mets, and I still like the Mets, I'll admit, but obviously we have some bad blood right now. But I have to be realistic, okay? They're the 5th best team in Major League Baseball. Maybe not when you look at the rotation. They do have some question marks, okay? I mean, Clay Holmes is their opening day starter. He was a horrible bullpen pitcher last year in the second half of the season. But I just think that their lineup is just too great to really, take too much of a hit from the pitching. Because I do think when the pitching's healthy, it's still going to be at least an average pitching core. I do believe that, okay? Shamanai, Clay Holmes, if he ends up being what they think he's going to be, they obviously have Kota Singa. And so I think that their pitching is going to be at least average, and that's all they need. Guys, look at this lineup. Okay, Mark Vientos, Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto, Pete Alonso. They've got Acuna's brother, somewhere in there. It's just like, my gosh, dude. I mean, that lineup is legit. And I wouldn't be surprised if they lead the league in runs scored by the end of the season, okay? But, again, they're not any higher because of the rotation. The bullpen, I do think it's very back-heavy. They're fine when it comes to the closer and the setup man. But other than that, I think their bullpen's a little questionable. And so it really just comes down to whether or not their pitching can stay healthy. And I think they'll be fine. I really do. So I'm happy with the Mets at 5. Next up at 4, this is where it really starts to get pinched, man. I mean, the top of the NL It's wild, okay? We obviously know who's going to be at number 1. Spoiler alert, sorry. But at number 4, I went with the Arizona Diamondbacks. And everybody's like, whoa, whoa. They just missed the playoffs after going to the World Series. Okay, they had some players who had down years, specifically Corbin Carroll, who, was their savior the year they went to the World Series. But I'm very happy with them being 4th, you guys. I mean, they bring in Corbin Burns to an already solid rotation. Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly, Brandon Pfaadt. They trade for Josh Naylor. Okay, which, yeah, they lost Christian Walker. But to be honest with you, I think Naylor, maybe not defensively, but hitting-wise, I think he's pretty much right there with Walker. Okay, and they've got Ketel Marte, who is arguably the best second baseman in baseball. They have a really solid outfield. Okay, Corbin Carroll, Jake McCarthy, and Lourdes Gurriel Jr. They've led the league in runs the last 2 seasons. All right, the only thing that's really hurt them is their rotation, and then they go out and they bring in Corbin Burns. And I don't know what more you can want as a Diamondbacks fan. I think it hurts that they're in that division, obviously, but they're going to be right there. I'd be very surprised if they don't win at least 92, 93 games. I really believe that. I think the Diamondbacks are going to be super fun to watch. I think people are sleeping on them, and I think you need to keep an eye on them because I'm very happy with ranking them as the 4th best team in baseball. Now, before we get to the absolute juggernaut, the next 2 teams are NL East teams, okay? After we just talked about the Mets, I think that division is so loaded, man. But I went at number 3 with the Philadelphia Phillies. I just think they've consistently been atop that division, the last couple years, ever since Bryce Harper got there. And while they choke in the playoffs, that's not what this power ranking's about. This is just about going into the season. I think the Phillies, they still have the roster. That rotation was, I think, top 3 in every category last year. I might be a little off on that, but I know their rotation last year was amongst the best in baseball. They've still got that lineup. Bryce Harper, if he stays healthy. Trey Turner. JT Realmuto. Sorry, I definitely botched that, but it's a hard one to say. Alec Boehm. Bryson Stott. I just love the Phillies roster. I don't think they got much. I don't think they got any worse, to be honest with you, from last year. We know what they did last year. It's just other teams around them got better. And so that brought them down to 3. I don't think I can take them down lower, though. I think that they're better than the Mets on paper, okay? I think that they're just barely better than the Diamondbacks, at least consistently have been better than the Diamondbacks, okay? And then obviously I think they're better than every AL team. So I had to put them at 3. I mean, there's just no other valid place to put them. Number 2, this is another team kind of like the Rangers where everybody is writing them off to start the season because of where they ended last year. They did make the playoffs just barely, but they immediately got bounced. But the Atlanta Braves, guys, they're still the Braves. If you look at their team last year, they had a lot of injuries. Okay, Acuna's going to be back in May, June. Spencer Strider's going to be back at the end of April. That's an MVP winner, Cy Young. They're legit. They're getting those guys back. They still have Matt Olson, Ozzie Albies, Marcell Ozuna, who was, one of the best hitters in baseball last season as a DH. They bring in Jerickson Profar from the Padres, who might not be as good as he was last year, because when you look at his track record, he just isn't that player consistently, but he very well could be. We see the Braves bring out the best in people, okay? Chris Sale's coming off a Cy Young win. Okay, they took a relief pitcher and Ronaldo Lopez and turned him into a 1.9 ERA pitcher, across 140 innings or whatever it was. So look, they're the Atlanta Braves. I think they're going to win that division. I do. I think they're going to bounce back. They're going to win that division. And I think they're the second best team in baseball. Now, we know who's number 1. Guys, it's the Los Angeles Dodgers. All right, and it's not just because they're coming off a World Series victory, although that obviously helps, but just look at the roster, dude. Even if they don't stay healthy, they're just the depth on that team. They have 10 starting pitchers that could be a number 3 or better on pretty much every other team in baseball. It's insane, okay? It is absolutely insane. I think that they're just going to be able to learn from each other to grow. Plus they bring in Blake Snell, all right, which is already, they were already one of the best rotations in baseball, although statistically last year they weren't. But again, injuries, Glasnow got hurt. Even if Ohtani doesn't come back and pitch, which I don't think they need him to. And then you just look at their lineup: Betts, Freeman, Ohtani, Max Muncy. Dude, it's just a scary team. Will Smith. There's not really much else to say, you guys. We know who the Los Angeles Dodgers are, and going into the season, they're the best team in baseball. That's just how it is. And so, let me know what you think. Comment. I'm sure there was a lot of teams where it was iffy, man. Once you get to that middle, they're all right there. And so let me know what you think. Again, please subscribe, like, share. I appreciate it, you guys. I love it. I'm so excited for opening day. Okay, the first pitch has been thrown. And so I'm getting ready. I'll post this. I'll have the second video out later. And just thank you so much, you guys. Let's go, man. It's time. It's time. I'm very excited. So just make sure to look out for that second video, and I hope you enjoyed this one. Thank you. Then they've got Seth Lugo. Okay, that's nasty 1-2 punch at the top of that rotation. That is nasty. Then obviously they have arguably the best player in the AL. Okay, if you don't want to count Judge for whatever reason, Judge likes to drop easy flyouts in center field during the World Series. But Bobby Witt Jr. is probably everybody's MVP favorite going into the year.